Good afternoon. It is still January 31st, and we are now moving into legislative day number 3, introduction of bills. First bill for introduction is Bill 323, Environmental Sustainability, Montgomery County Green Bank. The lead sponsor is the council president at the request of the county executive. A public hearing is scheduled for February 14th at 1:30. A T&E work session will be scheduled for March 6th. Ms. Soconi, if you'd like to share with us more information.
Sure. Good afternoon, Council President Glass, and good afternoon, Council members. This bill is a county executive's bill seeking to expand the scope of the existing Green Bank. So the Green Bank currently is set up in the code. It's established by code, and the county council by resolution gets to establish the Green Bank. There was state legislation that created something called a resilience authority. Now, just to distinguish, the Green Bank's focus is investment in clean energy, whereas the state has established something called a resiliency authority, which is focused, you can set one up if you wished, and that's something that is focused on addressing impacts of climate change. So the county executive takes the position that at this time Montgomery County does not need a resilience authority, but what we should do is expand the scope of the existing Green Bank to do resilience type activities, and that's what this bill seeks to do.
Very good. Thank you for that brief description. So that is introduced. Next item is Expedited Bill 423, Administration Non-Merit Positions Special Projects Manager. The lead sponsor is the council president at the request of the county executive. A public hearing is scheduled for February 14th at 1:30. The GO committee work session will be scheduled at a later date. Ms. Nadeau?
Hello. So what this bill would do is it would create a second special projects manager position in the office of the county executive. Currently there's only one, and this will make sure that there are two. According to the county executive's memo, a major initiative for this position is going to be more access to high-speed broadband. As you've all remembered, in recent years there's been a lot of talk about closing the digital divide, particularly in the agricultural areas. So that's what this position would focus on.
Thank you very much. I see Ms. Ludke would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that when this comes before us for hearing, that there's clarification on why this is being done as an expedited bill, for saying that it's necessary for the immediate protection of the public interest. So if the county executive's office could please be prepared to explain why this is necessary now in that regard, as opposed to the normal budgeting and personnel process. Thank you.
I'll definitely make note of that. And that also reminded me, there was also an executive regulation. It was introduced during the consent agenda, and that's going to change the position description. Going through that regulation, it looks like that change basically changes who that position will report to. So I want to note that as well.
Thank you for that clarification. And that bill has been introduced. Next up is Expedited Bill 523, Personnel and Human Resources, Prospective Employees, Healthcare Privacy. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Ludke, with co-sponsors Albernaz, Balcom, Friedson, and Stewart. A public hearing is scheduled for February 14th at 1:30, and a GO committee session will be scheduled at a later date. Turn it over to Ms. Ludke.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President Glass, and I want to thank all the co-sponsors that the President just named, as well as Councilmember Sales, who has signed on to also be a co-sponsor as of yesterday. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, this issue came to my attention from various county employees and council staff who had to provide answers on the county's existing medical questionnaire form, which is rather lengthy, involved, and intensive, and invasive. And as noted, and as my prior question indicated, certain things are necessary on an expedited basis to protect the public interest. This is one of those scenarios. In light of the Dobbs decision, there are certain inquiries that come on that form that may in fact place employees in a very, very difficult position. And the current wording of the form requires that individuals provide that information as a precondition to final approval of their employment, which is also concerning and not necessarily tied to their particular job functions or job descriptions. So this bill aims to clarify that and make sure that the questions that are being asked are asked relevant to specific types of employment, and not necessarily across the board for anyone who works for the county, and that those are those qualifications that are related to the specific job function are clearly advertised within the job listing so that folks understand that when they are applying for those positions. I guess I turn this over to council to elaborate further.
Ms. Wellens, do you have any additional comments?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Council President. I think that Councilmember Lukey explained it thoroughly. I don't have anything to add at this time. Thank you.
Very good.
I guess I should add that we did have a conversation with OHR to discuss the bill, and it was a very productive conversation, so I appreciate their time and attention to this matter as well. And again, this is to make sure those guardrails are up so that we're not at the mercy of whoever is in the positions within OHR or, again, placing us at risk based on changing legal precedents. So thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Luedke, for introducing this important bill, and I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Also appreciate Councilmember Luedke introducing this and would like to be added as a co-sponsor. I've actually raised this issue several times over the last 5 years or so for several staff members who have had issues with this. I know others have as well, and I do think legislation's necessary in that even though OHR was in the process, and I appreciate Ms. Michelson for working with them to try to address this through the regulatory process, I do think we need to nip it in the bud and say that you can't ask these types of things. I think I look forward to working through the committee process and at full council. There's some things I think maybe we can tweak a little bit to expand, such as vaccination records and other things that might need to be reviewed at some point, but I think the intent of this bill is the right one, and it's been shocking to me for a long time, and I'm glad you're introducing a bill to change it. So thank you.
Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well.
So noted. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you, Councilmember Luedke, for pushing this forward and making it happen. Super important. And I'd also like to be added as a co-sponsor, and wanted to especially add my appreciation for the fact that it has the limited prohibitions on the questions while still providing the space for employees to ask for accommodations. Is really important. So thank you.
Okay, and Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Please add me too. Thank you.
And that is a full council.
You're welcome.
There you go. Thank you for introducing this bill. Very good. Moving on to the next bill introduction is Bill 623, Housing Sharing Economy Rental. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Jawando. A public hearing is scheduled for March 7th at 1:30 p.m. and a committee work session will be scheduled at a later date. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excited to be introducing this bill, and it's a ZTA, so I'll just speak to both now so I don't have to speak later in district council session. But this will presents us an opportunity to expand the sharing economy here in Montgomery County. There are a lot of new innovative companies out there that, such as Swimply and Bark, which allow for residents to share in an entrepreneurial way, use spaces at homes for limited periods of time, walking dogs, swimming in a swimming pool, having a party, home gyms, in-home music if you want to work on a garage to fix a car because you have a small business. This legislation would authorize, regulate, and tax these rentals of residential property. These are same day that are a number of hours, less than 12 hours. We're working with the companies to understand how they've been operating. I want to thank Ms. Nadeau, who will give us further insight for working really hard and doing something I don't think we've done here in a long time, creating a new section of the code in order to accommodate this. But as we know, the sharing economy has exploded over recent years. It's something that's happening anyway, and we want to make sure that it's under a regulatory regime where it can be safe and also create some opportunity for expansion and revenue in a modest way here for the county. So we've modeled it off of some of the previous Airbnb legislation, but this is not Airbnb related. This is not overnight. This is short-term hourly rentals. And there's a lot of exceptions in there. So I hope that colleagues will co-sponsor. We will do a press conference closer to the public hearing in March, but want to thank everyone who's worked with us to get to this point, and especially Ms. Nadeau. Thank you.
Ms. Nadeau?
Thank you. That was a great summary, so I have nothing to add.
There we go. Councilmember Lutke.
My ad is just thanks to Councilmember Jawando for bringing this bill forward, and a request to be added as a co-sponsor because it's incredibly important to both encourage entrepreneurial innovation and use, but also to make sure that we're doing so in a careful and measured way that provides for safety for everyone involved. And so I'm excited about this, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Councilmember Albanaz.
Just a quick question. I know this is going before the Economic Development Committee, but things like pools are regulated by the Department of Health and Human Services. So I was just curious as to what the committee assignment is.
The committee assignment has yet to be determined.
It does have yet to be determined. As a little bit of background, I believe Airbnb went to what was Fed at the time. So I imagine there will have to be some discussion about which committee this should go to, because right now it's HHS, and also there is an accompanying ZTA. So.
And just to add on that, I think either further confusion to it is that the county executive is also seeking to introduce a bill to change where Airbnb and other rentals are regulated from to DHCA, which would be PH committee. So, you know, I think it could go in three places. Right now it could be HHS, PH, or economic development, but
We don't need to litigate that right now.
Just kidding. Anyway.
But it is more than pools, right? As Councilmember Jawando stated in his opening remarks. So thank you for that. Councilmember Sales.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Jawando, for introducing the legislation. Just given the context, this adds another opportunity for us to solicit revenue from short-term rentals. And these are only well, I guess we'll find this out whether this would affect gym or other non-pool related clubs, or if this is just for houses that have pools in them.
it's just for short-term rentals at homes. So if you have an on-site gym, you could theoretically rent that as well, but it's any kind of space at your home.
Okay. I would like to sign on as a co-sponsor. Thank you for introducing.
Okay. Not seeing any other comments. That bill is in. Councilmember Mink.
Sorry, slow on the texting there. Yeah, excited about this. It's a great opportunity for innovation and to encourage the entrepreneurial spirit here in Montgomery County, as well as to find a new and creative source of revenue, which we know that we need. So happy to sign on as a co-sponsor and continue to dig into the details.
Now I can say without seeing any other comments, this bill has been introduced. Thank you. And now we go on to bills for final reading. Bill before us is Bill 3322, Capital Improvement Program, Affordable Housing Feasibility Study Required. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really appreciate the fact that we are here for final action on Bill 3322. Crafting and refining this legislation were really team efforts between my office, council colleagues and staff, the executive branch, and community stakeholders over quite a long period of time. I want to thank my colleagues on the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. This was the first action that we took taking up this bill, and I think was in many ways symbolic of transitioning from the prior Planning, Housing, Economic Development Committee and the efforts that we undertook there, and to our newly constructed committee as well, focused on co-locating of housing on public property and to using all the resources at our disposal to address our housing crisis in Montgomery County and to make sure that Montgomery County government is leading. We need to reiterate that we can't realistically solve our housing crisis unless we maximize the full potential of our public property in additional housing and in creating affordable housing. It's not the only tool, but it is one of the important tools in our toolkit, and we recognize that our housing needs are great, our land is scarce, and so we need to aggressively pursue each and every project as it presents itself, so that we not miss opportunity after opportunity, as unfortunately we have for too many situations in the past. So we're looking forward to this improvement to the process. It's really a refinement of a lot of work and a lot of efforts that have taken place up to this point, and I think this will be a really good opportunity to create a collaborative process between the executive branch and the county council to be able to really put these projects to the forefront, to make sure that housing gets a fair shot and a thorough review early enough in the process where we actually can deliver on many of the promises that we have made. I want to thank Ms. McCartney Green for her many, many months of work, and a special thanks to Mary Geis and Cindy Gibson on my team for all of their efforts, and an acknowledgement as well to the executive branch, particularly in Department of General Services, for their work and their feedback and their thoughts in refining this effort. I do want to acknowledge 12 co-sponsors on this bill. This might be the most co-sponsored bill in the history of the Montgomery County Council. Council members Katz, Albornoz, Fani Gonzalez, Stewart, Balcom, Mink, Sales, Joando, and former council members Navarro, Reamer, and Rice. So quite an effort here, and I think it speaks to the prior council's commitment to addressing our housing crisis that is carried on to this council's commitment to addressing the housing crisis and making sure that county government is in the lead and in many ways leading by the power of our examples with funding, with resources, and with public properties. As a quick overview, the committee adopted some friendly amendments crafted in collaboration with the executive branch. We had a good discussion about those during committee. We changed the definition of department to mean the Department of General Services. You can find that on line 11. Required the feasibility study prior to the completion of facility planning, the program of requirements, site selection, or land acquisition, to allow it to happen concurrently, but not necessarily before a point at which there would be enough information to actually make a reasonable determination. So we worked together with the executive branch to determine that. That amendment's available on line 13. Require DGS, not the county executive, to submit the feasibility study and a capital project plan when needed. That's lines 12 to 15, 43, and 49. The reason for that is we want to be working directly with the department to understand what the feasibility study says and have that information directly in many ways, and then clarify certain requirements included in the feasibility study. These were just modest modifications, line 15 to 26. That's the extent. It was adopted 3-0 by the committee with those collaborative friendly amendments that were supported by the executive branch. And the last thing that I will just note on this, there was a fiscal impact statement that this will cost $0. So an improvement to the process that requires no additional expenses. The reason for this is much of this work, virtually all of this work, has already been happening. It's just been happening in the executive branch and doesn't come to the council until after decisions are made. And so the public doesn't have an opportunity to understand what's going on. The council is not weighing in on what's happening. And I think, unfortunately, the decisions are made, and by the time it comes to the council and we have that discussion that we need, we run into this conflict where you either have to make what can be a draconian decision related to funding for a public benefit like a library or a recreation center, or decide that we aren't going to take advantage of housing on a site. And getting to that point in the process, it's too late, and it doesn't allow us to really seriously consider these important decisions that only come up once in a generation, maybe once in 2 generations, 30, 60, 70 years these buildings can be built, and this will allow us to avoid those unfortunate dynamics and have a much more collaborative, much more, I think, thoughtful conversation about these serious public policy priorities. If I miss anything, I will turn it over to council staff to note with appreciation for all of your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Vice President Friedson. Just want to know that the bill will take effect July 1st after the fiscal year budget for 2024. That's it.
Appreciate that, Mr. President. We have a committee recommendation that's before the body.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President and Chair. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you. I really appreciate the committee's work on this. And for further context, 2 previous councils ago had required the executive branch conduct an analysis on all future public projects to determine whether or not affordable housing, senior programming, or childcare could be accessed. But as Council Vice President Friedson noted, the council was not privy to that information. We did not receive the analysis of that and had to sort of take the executive branch at their word that an analysis had been completed. This gives both the council and the community an opportunity to weigh in much earlier in the process. And I do appreciate Council Vice President Friedson. He and I had a brief conversation about an hour and a half ago, but I just wanted to confirm, Ms. McCartney-Green, what we don't want there to be is an unintended consequence. Affordable housing, of course, needs to continue to be a priority. I'm proud to sponsor this bill, and I will be voting for it. But this does not preclude an analysis or a deep analysis of other uses of potential public sites, such as childcare, as an example. I just wanted to confirm that that's accurate.
That's correct, Councilmember Albornoz. This does not preclude evaluation of other sites, and the law is still there in terms of feasibility studies for childcare, and that's still under Chapter 25, and that still would take process despite the enactment of this legislation for today.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Friedson. Sorry, I'll yield back to
Council Vice President Friedson.
Yeah, I appreciate you clarifying that. I think it's an important point that this doesn't take away any of the other requirements. It just puts this one out in a more public setting and a more, I think, transparent and accountable setting than it had been before. I'll also note that the council has the ability to waive any requirement. And so this doesn't preclude the executive branch from coming forward with a creative idea and explaining that to the council and asking for the council's support. Ultimately, the council is the decider here with the budget. We have ultimate budget authority under the charter. The challenge is we don't want to create a scenario, as we have unfortunately had too often in the past, where we're so late in the process that it's only the budget decision where the feedback and the input occurs and not much earlier on in the process. So the council would still have the ability to be flexible, to utilize any other types of public benefits, but this makes sure that we aren't giving short shrift to the stated goal of housing. I also should acknowledge, and you mentioned, my predecessor, Roger Berliner, was the council member in a couple councils ago who put forward the requirement from housing, and this in many ways is an effort to strengthen what was attempted there, but hasn't quite worked out to the level that it was intended, and so this is in many ways carrying the baton on that effort.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank Council Vice President Friedson for introducing the legislation. I'm glad for the amendments because I was concerned about the 30-day additional time that it would take for the council to review the analysis and to receive public input. So streamlining this effort strengthens this bill and supports our commitment to prioritizing affordable housing. So looking forward to supporting and passing this.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Great. Just want to add my thanks and working on this with two different council bodies over the year to get this passed. And since Councilmember Friedson raised the fiscal impact statement, I also just wanted to note on our racial equity and social justice impact, this also found a small but positive impact because it would hopefully increase affordable housing and narrow racial disparities in housing insecurity, such as rent burden and homelessness. So just I know the staff does an awful lot of work on these statements, and they're much appreciated, and we do read them. So thank you.
Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Vice President Friedson, for putting this forward. And I think that we're all serious about affordable housing, and I think this is a step in the right direction, a big step. But we are going to play catch up a little bit. For the projects that are already underway, the Clarksburg Library, for instance, is in the process of moving forward and has been delayed to take a look at this. I had a conversation with the county executive about making sure the project moves, that the feasibility study moves forward quickly to make sure that the project stays on track. So I just wanted to mention that. So we'll see firsthand how it works very, very soon, I hope. So thank you. And of course, I will be supporting.
Thank you. And then I too will just add my appreciation to Council Vice President Friedson. And in looking at the co-sponsor list, I could have thought I co-sponsored it. I guess I had two, right? Right? So, and seeing I had two opportunities to do so. So I'm going to have to go back and watch the video to see what was missing. But the reality here is that this legislation, the feasibility study that will be created is only as good as our action on that information. And so the commitment that we all have and have stated in many different venues, not just from this dais, to building more affordable housing, to having more co-located sites, we need to take this information and use our budgetary authority and our land use authority to actually move the needle on having more housing that is affordable here in the county. And so I appreciate this effort. It is a 3-0 unanimous vote from the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. And with that, Madam Clerk, if we can call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey. Yes. Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink.
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales.
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Albernos.
Yes.
Councilmember Albernos votes yes. Councilmember Jawando.
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Katz.
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Friedson.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Glass.
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes.
That is unanimous. Congratulations. Okay, we are now going to sit as District Council to introduce Zoning Text Amendment 2301, Accessory Residential Uses, Shared Economy Rental. A public hearing is scheduled for March 7th at 1:30, and a committee work session will be scheduled at a later date. And it was previously noted this is a companion piece of legislation, right? Councilmember Jawando or Ms. Nadeau?
So the bill, as was noted, is going to lay out a lot of the licensing and application requirements. What the ZTA will do is create the use in the zoning code, because you can't license something that's an illegal use. So that is what the ZTA will do, and I will leave it there. Not sure if you want to do co-sponsors in the same order. I leave it up to you, President.
Yeah, and I will just add briefly, if I could, Mr. President. The first ZTA of 2023. So it's always cool. So thank you. New chapter and first ZTA. There we go.
And that is sponsored by Councilmember Jawando. Any comments? Anyone want to co-sponsor? Going once?
Oh, this is the companion?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. The ZTA.
Yeah, happy to co-sponsor.
There you go. Councilmember Mink.
Same.
Councilmember Lutke.
Ditto.
Okay, ditto. Councilmember Sales. And that ZTA is introduced. Okay, so now we're moving on to agenda item 7, which is action on the rules of procedure. Last week, we had a a very thorough and I would say thoughtful conversation on the rules of procedure, recognizing that now that the 11 members of this body have been seated and have been here for about 6 or 7 weeks now, or maybe longer, right? Time flies when you're having fun. That there are things that we could always work to improve upon. And that the rules of procedure, as approved by the previous council back in November, had opportunities for improvement. And through last week's work session, I think we came to a really good landing spot that provides more transparency for the public and more opportunities for members of this council, and I think most notably members of the next council, to understand a little bit more how this place operates before they sit in these chairs. And I know that there is also an amendment in this packet, but with that I will turn it over to Ms. Wellens if we want to talk about the points of agreement last week, just to bring us all up to speed.
Certainly. Thank you so much, President Glass and council members. Good afternoon. As the council president mentioned, last week the resolution to amend the council rules was introduced. There was a robust work session in which a number of amendments were discussed. The council took some tentative, quote-unquote, straw votes to kind of gauge the temperature and arrived at places of tentative agreement. And all of the amendments that were tentatively agreed to are reflected at Circle 1 in the copy of the resolution that you find in your packet. There are, and just to briefly kind of identify some of the changes, there were clarifications to definitions and vote requirements, alteration of requirements related to the election of officers, and related to the adoption of committee structures, clarifications concerning council correspondence. There was identification of a process to choose interviewees for council appointments, to provide for a nomination process for certain council appointments, to clarify requirements surrounding when virtual attendance is permitted by council members of council meetings. There was an alteration of timelines related to the expiration of bills, and an alteration of the process related to bill withdrawals, and a few technical corrections as well. There were 3 items I wanted to mention, Mr. Council President. One is that I made one error in the resolution itself at Circle 7 under interviews. Paragraph 2, where there's a selection of interviews, the council had tentatively agreed that if at least 4 council members indicate to the clerk that they want to interview a potential nominee, that person will be interviewed. I accidentally put 5 there, so that 5 should be struck and should be made a 4. And thank you to Councilmember Joando's staff for identifying that. So that is one correction. And then the other 2 issues, Mr. President, were we have the question was risen, and my colleague Ms. Nadeau raised this, of, it's a very good point of what happens now that we are changing the expiration dates for bills and resolutions. What happens to the bills and resolutions that are currently pending? So for your consideration, staff would suggest that you might wish to adopt an amendment to add a paragraph to the resolution that's before you, indicating that the amendments to rules 6F and 7F, those are the ones related to the expiration dates, apply only to bills or resolutions introduced on or after the effective date of the resolution, which would be today, the 31st.
I'm open to that without objection. Great.
Okay, and in addition to the amendments that are reflected in the text of the resolution, there is an addendum to your council staff packet with a further amendment to a further proposed amendment to the related to the determination of committee structure and membership. That's on the very last page of your packet. It's an amendment supported by council members Mink, Balcom, Stewart, and Albornoz.
Thank you. Would any of those council members like to speak? Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Yes, with appreciation to the authors of this thoughtful amendment, we were looking for a way to, as minimally as possible, add in a little bit of a language that would allow for the possibility of having that vote at the second meeting of the council if needed, recognizing that, you know, it would still take some serious political will to make that happen, which I think is the sentiment of the body, that is about the balance that we want to strike, but that the option is there if needed and if desired by the majority of the council. So I would like to move to adopt this amendment.
Okay. Second. Okay, that is moved by Councilmember Mink and seconded by Councilmember Albornoz. Any other comments? All those in favor? Oh, I see you now there. Councilmember Lutke.
Yeah, just for a point of clarification, so, you know, when I reviewed this, it is not necessary or is redundant because the body can, if there's a need to do so, vote to suspend the rules. So this is superfluous based on the remaining rules that are in the rule book, because at any time the body can, in fact, vote to suspend the rules and then do exactly what is listed in here. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention as they make their choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say the same thing about every rule. So every rule could be overruled by a majority. So I think this is important because if a majority of the body agrees, then the vote will go forward on the first meeting. But if a majority of the body doesn't agree, I think it puts a lot of pressure to come up with Plan B at the dais. And I think that this giving one more week to kind of work things out is a better option than trying to come up with something on the fly.
Thank you. So I'll add to that I'll reiterate what I said last week. Everything this body does operates under a majority structure. And that goes for council leadership, that goes for the committee structure, and ultimately it goes towards the legislation that we pass or in some instances don't pass. And so there are rules in place to circumvent rules that have been established, just like this rules of procedure could have been voted on last week should someone have wanted to suspend the rules. But we didn't do that because we wanted thoughtful comment period and deliberation. And I appreciate my four colleagues for deliberating a little bit more and putting this forward. I will support this amendment because I think at the end of the day it's all about how do we achieve collegiality and a collaborative spirit here. And anything that can put us and future councils on the right footing, I think benefits not only the body but our public as well. So there is a motion on the floor. You want to speak, Councilmember Joando? Okay. This is just on the motion right now okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say on the amendment, I appreciate the thoughtfulness and collaboration of the co-sponsors. This is not what I had originally proposed, but it is actually inching us a little closer to that consensus, right, of realizing maybe we would need another week at some point, even if, as Councilmember Mink eloquently put, it was, you need a lot of political will to get it done. So appreciate that, and I'll be supporting it as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Mink for continuing to think about this and work on it and bring it back to the body. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Sales.
I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you to Councilmember Mink, who introduced this, and the co-sponsors of the amendment. Looking forward to adding this to our rule book.
Very good. Not seeing any other speakers. All those in favor of the amendment on the floor, raise your hand. That is Councilmembers Joando and Katz and Stewart and Fani Gonzalez and Balcom and Glass and Albornoz and Sales and Mink. All those opposed. Council Vice President Friedson and Councilmember Lutke. Okay, and so now we come to the full rules of procedure. Anybody have any additional comments or thoughts? Anybody have a motion?
Second.
Move for approval by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Sales. This is a hand vote. All those in favor of the council rules of procedure, raise your hand. It is a resolution. That is unanimous. Very good. Okay, that is it for today. Thank you for a good day's work, and we are adjourned.